It's time for change to move into the real work of the universe. And it's time to understand that we use the matter state to reach the level of understanding of the soul of the man. Now you understand maybe why the Creator has sent His messengers in the name of whatever you have had. Is that they bring the ears that it can be used when the time of the Messiah comes. They can teach the soul and the message, not to oppose. But by them understanding through those who have become Messiahs, to give from their souls to these to elevate, the job is made easy. The school is there and the students are devotedly there. Then there won't be any fight between what they call the Muslims and the Christians. The lamb and the lion will eat and sleep in the same nest. The Christians and the Muslims will sleep and pray in the mosque and in the same church in the name of their souls, not in the name of religion that is used to create so much conflict for the benefit of those who were the hyperactive children. The time has come, the time of change is here. And as I said, my wish is my command. If it's your wish to see peace, the path of peace is laid very clearly. It's the soul of the collective awareness. By giving will create that position of change. No other thing. There is no pen in the soul of the man. And I'm sure once you go into the universal community, you will never see anything written but the balance of the fields of the soul of the existence. Try to be humble enough not to become arrogant in the power that you have understood and you possess. Otherwise, you'll fall in the same path of the church and the mosque. This is what we promised, and this is what we have delivered. We have to understand the operation of the soul, and we have to understand the soul of the man is a star in the cosmos of the universe. If we compare the soul of the man and many of us, 7 billion in one collection, Earth is like a galaxy with so many stars. When we look in the depth of the universe, we see galaxies with hundreds of millions of stars in it. So is the planet Earth. It carries 7 billion beautiful stars, which are the soul of the man. Carries with it soul of so many trillions of animals, plants, and everything else. So if you look, when someone who does not see the physicality of the earth and its content, what do they see? They see a galaxy with so many beautiful lights shining, each one according to their strength, each one according to their position. An infant has a beautiful soul, so has the old man. To those who do not see the physical dimension of this planet, but they see the strength of the field, we are clusters of stars. The human race, every single soul, no one from a distance sees, that's the soul of a fisherman, that's the soul of the cosmologist, that's the soul of the president. They all shine irrespective of the physicality. This is the magic. This is what the new science has to bring to man. When we look through our soul, we see nothing but we star in the other souls. And this is the break. This is the understanding. This is what all these teachings are about. Coming to mature to the next level, to understand in the deep space, the universe is the oyster for those souls who serve. Then man is ready to go into space. Then man is ready to become part of the universal community which has been promised. I never promised you heaven. I always promised you the elevation of the man to join the family. And now you have the key. It's you who has to open the door to understand, if I can raise the soul of these people or millions of other souls, that the physical life on this planet changes, then I'm worthy to be part of the universal community. To be there to serve, to expand. To be there, to be part, that in the cycle of life of universe, I become, in being part, I become part of the totality. When man reaches that point, a new dimension in the strength of the soul of the man will appear, which is beyond imagination of understanding of the physical life. It's the gate to the opening of the new life, in a new dimension, which is beyond imagination of what you might call a new beginning, a new cycle. Which that cycle carries with itself the origin of the creation of life in the universe. It's the elevation of the soul to serve become the key, not a throne of the physical life. The time is right. The time has come for the man to go through this process.
Welcome everyone to the 58th One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace. It is Tuesday, November 20th, 2018. I'm your host, Rick Crammond, today. This is a publication of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute in English. And we are joined with, I believe we are joined today with Caroline Keshe of the Keshe Foundation, who is our fearless leader here in conversation. Caroline, are you available there? I understand your line might be a bit disconnected today, but are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I hope we can start with a nice fresh cup of tea or coffee and have a beautiful session, as it's going to be full moon tonight. So that inspires a lot of souls, I know. It's always a magical view to see the moon as a full entity and its beauty. As we agreed, Rick, can we start with do you still have the links from last week? Or we start with the Constitution straight away, Rick, because there's a lot of soul content in that one.
Okay, just a second here. that lined up.
Wollen Sie eine Tasche Kaffee oder so? Ja? Coffee. Ja. Inside, Topoli. Inside. Now. Good boy. Bravo.
Okay. We have the Earth Council Constitution up here, Caroline.
Can you go to the section which we already passed? If there are any more questions about it, start from the beginning.
If there are any questions on the first paragraphs, is that what you mean? Of the Constitution?
Yeah, if you can go over it again.
Okay, well, I'll just read the first sentence here of the first paragraph. Maybe that'll trigger something for us. I'll have to get you to mute there, Caroline, because it's pretty busy at your end. Or I'll mute. Okay, thank you. Here's the Constitution for the Earth Council. The Earth Council has been created to guarantee that by giving equal rights to all beings, there shall never be another conflict or war on this planet and beyond, by any and amongst all created beings and citizens. And then it goes on to say, the end of war and establishment of peace will be achieved through the understanding of the potential of all created beings. It is the potential of all created beings. So this is the biggest part about that first paragraph. And it goes on to say that peace has to be the goal of every move of the existence of every being on this planet. And I think we got through the first couple of paragraphs here. I'm not sure. I think we have, the third one maybe that we need to address. Is there any, sorry, my microphone was off in live stream. Is there anyone who has any questions or comments on the first couple of paragraphs there? For the people in the live stream, I just read the highlights of the first couple of sentences of the paragraphs. Okay, well, perhaps I can go on and just read the third paragraph here. It says, we, the Earth Council, acknowledge that Earth is a part of the solar system, galaxy, universe, and all the unicos. As such, the planet Earth needs to become a part of the cycle of creation by supporting the planet and all the beings that live on her to elevate themselves past the current cycle of evolution to a more fulfilling and peaceful existence. We acknowledge Mother Earth as itself a living entity that has her own soul. Okay, and it goes on to say, From every atom to plants, animals, humans, insects, microbes, and more, and all those yet to be discovered, are souls which share the essence of the Creator, as well as the fields of planet Earth. Together we combine to make up the collective soul of the planet. Okay, does that inspire anyone to say anything, or shall we just carry on with me reading this?
Yes, Rick, if there are no questions, it means it's understood.
Okay, I'll go on. And it says, we acknowledge all other beings on this planet need to be supported, nurtured, and allowed to thrive in peace, including animals, plants, ecosystems, and other unseen beings, as well as Mother Earth herself. All will be supported to grow and thrive, as this will, in turn, enhance the lives not only on this planet, but all of the totality, as we acknowledge we are a part of the whole. Mutual cooperation, collaboration, sharing, and contribution to the well-being of all should be the core undertaking of the Earth Council. Our aim is to support the planet as a whole and every being that lives here. We will serve to create an environment of nurturing and harmony in which all beings may grow and thrive in their own unique way. Is everybody good with that? That's the end of the first part of the actual Constitution. Okay, is there any comments, or how do you see us proceeding at this point, Caroline?
We don't have many response, but we're used to this at the beginning.
Yeah.
So we're warming up. Nobody, no questions or comments or inspiring how we should deal with this or how we can deal with this. Nobody? Okay.
Oh, we have a hand up here, so...
okay.
Thank you, Rick. Good day, Signora Carolina. I am Dan from Romania. I have a little question adjacent, I thinking, when Rick reading this first chapter of Constitution. It's passed from my mind how it's possible unite in Romania. It's so many group of plasma from city, one city, two city, another city. It's like a puzzle. How it's possible to unify, get together in one piece?
You are Romanian?
Yes.
Or you're... because you have
no, it's part of everything. It's part of totality.
Because it sounds like you have a Spanish accent. Or it sounds Spanish.
Both are Latin languages.
That's why it sounds. Maybe Sander, you can support us in this one?
Yes, the original idea, just let me change the headphones. The original idea was to create a group which unites all those people who speak Romanian and they don't speak so well English. So that's why we have created in 2015, end of September, a group based on the language. And don't forget, there are living Romanians not only between the political borders, but all over the world. So that was the original purpose. Later, somebody had the idea to create a multitude of local groups, basically made of same people, not even people from the localities, and started to make a division. And I see the division continues because I hear in the talks that let's show that we Romanians are the first and so on. So it's about all the humanity. It's one planet, one race. Why to divide? Why to divert people in many small groups? So those who are in those many groups are lacking the posts from the main group. And those from the main group will lack the posts from the many local groups. Wouldn't be easier just to join the language group and not the country name group? So the original purpose was to unite the people by the language which they speak, and not to divide them by this city, this country, that country. Because after you have groups divided by cities, finally you will have the northern part of the city and the southern part of the city. Again, it's a possibility for division. It's up to the people to rise up, to elevate, to understand what's good for them. They have all free choice. Of course, they can create so many groups. But what's the purpose to compete between the groups that we from the Western Romania, we have a separate group, those from Bucharest have another group. It's going on the same division. It's about the human habits of competing. It's no problem if somebody creates a work group that physically can meet in a place and gathers together people from that area. But why they shall not share what they do to all who speak the same language? So this is my opinion in this aspect. But you see, people like to compete, and some like to call themselves managers and leaders and so on, and they want to be the most beautiful man from his own limited group. What can we do with that? We can only elevate the souls. It's no other solution.
I have the wish. Carolina, be the magnet in the table.
You see, there is the oldest Romanian language group with over 6,000 or 6,600 members. Meanwhile, there are so many groups who are competing. Now we have 1,300, now we have 1,000, and so on. Always there will be people who would like to compete. You see, division goes on, and people don't observe that. You see, people from the same city are divided by their soccer teams or football teams. Some are with the Star, some are with the Dynamo or other group, because they are fans of people of wearing other colors on their T-shirt or on their flag.
But they are in a way united with one thing, which is they both sides have a love of the game and a love to play, right?
That's the most common denominator for humans.
That's right. The common denominator is the love. is not really the language. It's not really, they're not there just because everyone's of the same language and happens to be together. They're not there because they happen to be just Keshe people or something. They're there because of that, to me, because of that love connection. And maybe if that is realized, that that is at the core of why all these groups are really getting together, then perhaps, and that is the natural expression of the essential self or the soul, that perhaps they can see their way over the differences through an understanding of what love is, or what the aspects of love that might be brought out in these groups. And maybe it's hard to address that directly, but perhaps that's an inroad to see how to balance these groups, let's say. Like some might be more tech oriented, some might be more diplomatic or you know, with connections to government or something, and others might be more, I don't know, heart-based or mind-based or whatever. Different sort of aspects could come up of the way people are their perspective or approach in those groups, but surely they all have a common bond. And like you were saying, Chandra, the sports thing is a good sort of way to look at it. But they all, people that play sports have a common thing. You look at the Olympics, there's a lot of competition. Think of, you know, Russia versus USA and all this kind of thing. It's almost like war, and there's some of the things they pull off is almost like war tricks and so on. But still, they all want to play with each other. All the countries want to get together to have that opportunity to interact with each other.
Yes. So many want to prove their own existence by competing with others and comparing and measuring what they can do.
Well, that's true in sports, and that's what makes our groups different. That's why they're not a sports group. It's a plasma teaching group, or it's hard to even define what these groups are in a way, because get together and talk about soul-based things and also physicality, nano, GANs, all full range, as opposed to just the physicality of sports or, you know, some other aspects.
Yeah, some have ambitions for promoting the enchanted crystals with certain frequencies, and they combine it with the newest trend. But in fact, you see that they are pushing for the old game, not for the new one. And others competing to get recognition from somewhere or fame. Others are competing to get some European funds in order to get some money. And does no matter what they promote, whether it is, how to say, quantum or etheric or whatever. And meanwhile, there is a small place for promotion also for the Keshe Foundation. You see, it's the nature of the human beings that always there must be a game. But what is a game? Yes. It has goals or purposes. It has barriers. And it has some certain freedoms. And they have a score, a measurement, and so on. But in how many games we are without knowing, and how many games are in fact just for, not even for entertainment.
Yes, and
without recognizing that they are in a game. And sorry, I'd like to finish this before forgetting the thread. Okay. So maybe one thing to unite people is to make them agree with the same purposes. There should be a beautiful game to elevate the beings of this planet. Wouldn't that be a worthwhile purpose? Wouldn't be a worthwhile purpose of a game to join the universal community and not just to compete, it will be my street or your street who will be first. who cares who is first? If there is competition, it could be a competition in who can serve more, for instance. But even that, it is no reason, because you cannot make an order of importance that one soul is more important than the other. So how should we find a way to make more people agree to a common cause, to a common purpose, and to not compete with each other, but to compete toward achieving that purpose as soon as possible. Don't compete with your neighbor. Compete with the with the hardship which are on the way, if there are any. Compete with getting more people to get enlightened, to get agreed to things which are good for all. So that was my short say. Sorry for extending so much.
No, that's exactly correct. So yeah, well, that's what it comes down to. What do you do? What do you do with? How do we proceed with a planet full of people? And in the past, the common way to get things done and get people all together to do one thing is to have a war. And then everybody gets together under what they call their national, their flag and nationalism and so on. And
or wars based on religion, because we interpret the religion in a way, the others in the other way. Don't forget what happened in United Kingdom in the Middle Ages. The war between the Anglicans and the Catholics, for instance.
Right. So in any case, it's one group against another, and it galvanizes people because they think they believe that they belong to that group. That I'm a Catholic.
Wars, by my opinion, wars are based on fear and anger. These two emotions are causing fueling wars.
Fear and anger, you say?
Yeah. Why somebody would prepare tools of war when nobody wants to harm him? But somebody makes him believe that the others are bad and they want to take their opportunities. So find out the common denominators. We have a so long history, so we can learn from all the events from the history. So how wars started from the first place. And how some leaders were able to preserve peace. Look, like it was India in the time of King Ashoka. It was a peaceful country. Why there were no wars?
Well, it says in the Constitution here that the end of war and establishment of peace will be achieved through the understanding of the potential of all created beings. So if we were to reflect back on the, if we consider the different parts of, just using the Romanian group as an example here of the fractioning that can take place, or the differences between parts of the groups and so on. Perhaps through this understanding of the potential of all created beings is the way forward. It mentions here the path forward to peace must be to bring the understanding that solutions are achieved through dialogue and elevation of the soul of the opponent. So this would be the clue that we would need, I think, in order to move forward with bringing together in unity any group problems or group issues or friction. You could say that dialogue is what produces the interchange between the dissecting or the two diverging ideas. And the elevation of the soul of the opponent, if we look at them as an opponent indeed at all, like it says, rather than degradation or demeaning another soul or physical existence. So the idea is to have tolerance for others and to actually elevate the soul of others in order to produce that unity. So that's that's a tall order to, in the middle of conflict, to think about, well, how can I elevate the soul of this other person, rather than how can I voluntarily or involuntarily degrade or demean that other person because they degraded or demean. I feel like they degraded or demean me, perhaps, or.
There is a simple method. Rise him above yourself. Think of Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara from the Buddhist histories. A Bodhisattva is somebody who has the purpose to become a Buddha, to become an enlightened being, somebody who is on the path of becoming enlightened. So that means Bodhisattva, somebody who has the desire of enlightenment. And this Avalokiteshvara, known also as Kuan Yin in the Chinese names, made a vow to enlighten 1,000 beings before herself will be enlightened. And her body stipulated that her body shall be shattered in 10,000 pieces if she doesn't achieve that. Finally, she got enlightened before to reach that 1,000, but the religion says the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas put her body together, so that's why you see representations with so many eyes, so many arms and legs and so on. That is the religion part of it. But think about somebody who made a vow to elevate many others before to be elevated herself. Or think about there was a style of wrestling some thousands of years ago, maybe in some countries still there is this habit. It was among some horse riding people between Europe and Asia, where in the wrestling the winner was not that who pushed the opponent to the earth, but that who elevated on a higher position the other. Though who could lift the other higher, that was the winner. There's a lot of teaching in it. Or it was a novel by the Polish Sienkiewicz, something about sword and blood and war. I don't remember the exactly title, but there it was about a hero and a villain tried to destroy the hero. And at the end, after all his family was lost and all his properties lost, finally the hero got a safe position. He regained, with a lot of struggle, his property. And at the end of the novel, and it was a movie as well, his people captured the villain who was trying to destroy him. And they pushed him to his knees. Take the sword and cut his head, chop his head off. Now you can revenge. And he did not do any revenge. But he gave a horse to that villain, and he elevated him above his level. He put him on horse and he said, "You are free." What do you think? Who was the winner from that game? There are many ways how to elevate.
That's a good
one.
one.
Most obvious is the physical elevation.
I like the idea that you brought up of like there's a game that you play or I might play, or some people play as a kid, called King of the Castle, which is if there's a mound of dirt somewhere, then you go to the top of it and you try to maintain that place and try to push everybody else down in order to keep your position at the top of the hill. So, but what you're saying is that they would do the opposite, actually try to bring your opponent to the top of the hill as opposed to pushing them down the hill. That's kind of a different concept, to elevate them, actually, literally, perhaps. And if you could push them up the hill and make them the king of the hill, in effect, then that's actually the act of elevation, I guess you could say, in its very essential physical realm. Interesting idea. Were there other items like that from that culture, from that time, that might be examples of almost an opposite perspective than our current modern one? And you mentioned before, Chandra, the very nature of language and the way it works for certain languages, and we talked about that in a previous session, I believe, as well. Are there any other examples that come to mind? You can please let us know. Okay, we've got Mark. Would you like to go ahead there, Mark?
Yes, I'm just thinking about the win-win situation. Now, the other name, well, China's showing this in the matter state right now with the One Belt, One Road policy, where they're elevating over 100 countries, or how many are involved. The other name for that is the win-win policy. Now, well, with the win-win, you're elevating. But what if we take it back to the sports games, what you find, it's reinforcing the win-lose idea. In other words, think of the rhetoric before the game: we're going to beat you, we're going to kill you, no, we're going to win, you're going to lose, and so on. Then you go into the game, they play the game, one team wins, they're highly elevated, the other team loses, they're dejected. So that's not a win-win situation. I always wanted to play sports just for the beauty of the game. Just, I wasn't really good at anything, but just for the beauty of playing the game. And at the end, both are elevated. So the win-win policy, we just have to look at that in our lives and show other people that this win-lose, like when China goes into a country, the previous model was, you take out 80% of the wealth, you give 20% to the king or the potentate, and the people have nothing. So the win-win policy is, yes, they go in and develop, but it gets shared with the country itself. So this is win-win, and I think the model in the matter state that everybody has to look at is the win-lose. Some people don't even want to play a game unless there's money involved or unless there's a win-lose situation. So I think if we win-win, everyone is elevated. And that's what I wanted to say.
Yes, good point, Mark. Absolutely. Win-win. Now, I see Waldemir has put a comment in the live stream, which is interesting. It comes from Section 2 of the Galactic Codex. Section 2 says, the law of dividing the conflicting parties, or Section 2 is the law of dividing the conflicting parties, which says that each sentient being has an unalienable and unconditional right to be divided and protected from the negative actions of other sentient beings. Let's read that again. Each sentient being has an unalienable and unconditional right to be divided and protected from the negative actions of other sentient beings. Okay, any comments on Waldemir's comment? How does that sit with our constitution here? Every being has a right to be protected from the negative actions of other beings, is the way it goes.
Negative for who?
You say negative for who? Is that what you said, Chandra?
Yes, because everything is relative.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Once you've decided that something or someone is, or some actions are negative.
For instance, isolating a criminal from the rest, it's very negative from the viewpoint of the criminal, but it's very positive for those who will not be subjected to the crimes which the other had a habit to commit.
And also, would not, in your case of the criminal, if people wanted to beat up that criminal because of something they did, then they would have to protect them from the negative actions of those people that wanted to beat up the criminal. So does that criminal have the right to be, divided and protected from what we could perceive as the negative actions of those people that want to beat up that person because of something really
No,
bad?
nobody wants to beat him up. Nobody wants to beat him up.
Okay.
Imagine somebody who has the habit, not like a criminal, just like a, insane person who has the habit to spit in face everybody who comes on the street. And nobody wants to spit him back. Just raise some aberration in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think all criminals are insane otherwise. Otherwise, if they know it's bad what they commit, so why would they do it from the first place?
All right. So does each being have a right to be protected from what could be considered, well, getting spit in the face, we could say is a negative action. But on the other hand, I think you might be leading up to this. This is a trap you set for me, isn't it?
It's not easy. You see, the situation has to be handled.
Some cultures, I think, let me get my point. In some cultures, to be spit in the face is actually a compliment, and you're supposed to just take it, enjoy it, and if you can do that, you're totally accepted into the culture, and you're one of the gang, basically. If the chief can do that to you, to exchange the fluids and so on, it's just all it is, basically. And if you can handle that and tolerate it, and it's part of the ritual, part of the culture, then you're fully...
Okay, let's not split the hair into four. Don't go into hair splitting on the details. I try to find an example. You look at the solution. The solution would be the elevation of the other who tries to harm. It's not the isolation. It's not it's really the best defense is to stop the cause of being harmed by the other.
Right.
By the elevation of the other.
And as Waldemir says, to mediate the conflict until it is resolved.
With this mediation, I have a big problem. Because two persons or two teams or two groups can solve the issues in between by direct communication. But whenever there is a long-term conflict between parties, always there is a third party in between. So I am not convinced that a third party, even as a mediator, would be a successful way. I remember when it was the Balkanian War, and there were the discussions at Rambouillet, at the United Nations. I think the Serbians were on one floor of the building, the Croatians on the other floor of the building, and it was a mediator in between. Of course, they were not able to agree because it was the third party in between. But it was designed in that way to preserve the conflict. They are not even allowed physically to talk each with other.
Waldemir goes on to say that negative is defined as not correct conduct, and that's by discernment. So
Well, then call it in that way, and not just negative, because you can say negative pole of the battery, which is a very good thing, because otherwise you cannot power your car. You see, it's the trap of the meanings of the words.
It's often the case when we get into this, and how to find those solutions and bring about the understanding. It's all about the words, really, in many ways. As we see through the sentence that's highlighted, that solutions are achieved through dialogue and the elevation of the soul of the opponent. So the elevation of the soul of the opponent is not necessarily through dialogue, but perhaps through an understanding of the feelings of the other person, perhaps.
I'd say more than dialogue, because dialogue means one talks and the other talks. But who understands? I would say communication with understanding instead of dialogue. So that which was told by, that message which was sent by A to B is really understood by B as it was sent, and not misunderstood or misinterpreted. For instance, you see how funny is life. Two people meet in the corridor at the office, and one says to the other, "Wow, how nice you look today." And the other, suspiciously, is looking to his dress. Do I have not closed my buttons at my trousers? What's wrong with me? It's a complete misunderstanding and misinterpretation of the honest and direct, hello, you look good today. But the other thinks that, oh, wow, it should be something wrong with me. Have you ever met such persons?
Or
I think
they
it's
might,
not very obsolete.
I might think, oh, I must have looked really bad yesterday or something. Why do I look especially good today? What was wrong with me before?
So that's why I say communication needs to have understanding as a end result. And if you communicate with understanding, in that case, it's possible to find the common denominators, to find the common reality that both can agree with.
Can I interrupt, please?
Yes, please.
I'm going to be out for half an hour. Okay, I'm going to come back in later.
All right. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Any directions before you go?
If you can't work on the Constitution anymore, please proceed with the from the Universal Council.
Thank you very much. So, Rick, let's go according to the schedule. And I stop talking about this other.
I'm going to be back.
All right.
See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, Tavakoli. Okay. Well, we're on our own, and we'll carry on here. You were saying, I think, something, Shandor?
Basically, that was my point, that if you get at understanding with the other, in that case, you can have peace. You can diminish all the conflicts. You see, communication is a flow between one point and the other. It's like the flow which is equalizing between a mountain and valley. If you have no flow, the scenery will not change. But if you have a flow, be it water, be it wind or whatever you see in nature, things are struggling to get in balance. Same in the plasmatic flows. There is a tendency to have flow between what's not opposing but what's different in some way, and get to a common denominator, get to a kind of balance. Somebody said once, a wise man, that communication is the universal solvent for all problems and barriers, and I can agree with it. But I have to add communication, which is not just talking, not just dialogue, but it's sending a message to the other with attention and intention to be understood, and the other has also the attention and intention and understanding of what was emanated from the source. And you see, recently it's no more habit in many countries for the youth to do army. But for instance, in army, precise communication is vital. Because if your order as a superior is misunderstood, then the others may shoot at the wrong targets and make damage to self instead of achieving the purpose. So there should be no misunderstanding. So one of the first things which we have learned in the army service, in the military service, which was compulsory in my youth, it was a proper communication. So the officer told, Private Smith, go to the position 6 and replace the guard. Yes, sir, I understood, yes, sir. And he replied, you understood nothing. Please repeat, what did you understand? And that is, if Private Smith repeated exactly what was the order, in that case, that who gave the order was sure that he really understood it and not misunderstood it. But when you work in a team, for instance, I worked for a while as a miner. It was very important to shout with proper codes at a distance. One was up 30 meters higher than the other, and you had to have no mistake. When he shouts, give me the hammer, to not understand that he wants to be hit with the hammer. And you see, slang doesn't help that. For instance, you know the New York slang, hit me with a phone. And if you are not from New York, maybe you take it literally and you hit him with the phone, and it will hurt. So that's why the end phenomenon of the good communication should be a proper understanding. So that was my point.
Yes, that's a good point. And if you even just look at the word understand, to stand under. And
let's say comprehend. Por favore, comprehension should be more useful. So I use the understanding in terms of comprehension.
Well, you mentioned earlier about the idea of putting your opponent above you. And if you look at the word to stand under, then that's exactly what occurs. You're standing under and being able to raise that being up in a way.
Yes, thank you for the addition. Just I don't want to enter into this conflict of meanings between understanding and comprehension, because some people, such a free man movement, used to write long articles about why you should not understand what the policeman tells you, because it may have another legal meaning that you follow his orders, whether you want, whether you not. So that's why I don't want to enter into this discussion. And probably you have read such kind of articles. You know, the smart-ass guys who teach others how to talk to avoid legal prosecution, and followers often get in big troubles because of the bad advices. So the policeman has the job to stop. He has the job to stop you. So when he says stop, you have to stop and shut up, unless he asks. Otherwise, it costs triple times more.
Yes, I suppose, but it would also be good to enter into a dialogue and try to understand the situation and so on, I suppose.
Yes, you should consider him a soul. You should consider him a man who is doing his duty, and not to see the scarecrow who is coming again with who knows what. If you consider the policeman like a being like you are, you will see how they change.
Well, yeah, I actually encountered that a couple of weeks ago, about I think 3 weeks ago now, where I was driving and got pulled over for speeding as I was desperately trying to overtake a very smoky, slow-moving diesel rig that was on the highway driving about 40 kilometers, and there was only one passing zone ahead, and I accelerated, tried to get by, and that's exactly where the police were in that one zone, the only place you can pass. So they pulled me over. I was a little upset and told them immediately that the vehicle that was right there going by was the reason that I was speeding and so on. And it didn't matter. I got a ticket. And at the end of it, I said to the officer, I was pretty calm and everything. I just said to the officer, I don't know how you can stand, I don't understand how you can be out here in this pollution all day. And he says to me, well, we don't, sir. I can only be out here 1 hour at a time, and I can't handle the noise and the air pollution here. I just shook my head. And, I had compassion. I expressed my compassion for his situation, and he opened up, and he couldn't be there for the very reason that I was trying to get beyond this vehicle because of the air pollution. And so we actually had a common understanding at that point. And he actually said to me, well, I have compassion for you for your situation, but I've already knocked off several kilometers off your, giving you the lower fine here, and it's only $200 and so on. And but I, even through all that trauma, you might say, I was able to come to some sort of eye-to-eye understanding, some bit of humanity through all this, and it was quite interesting in that through dialogue and essentially an elevation of the soul of the opponent. That a lot of people could have gone the other way and just held hard feelings to the officer and so on. I just realized he was just doing his job, and he didn't particularly like some of the results of his job any more than me driving on the highway and getting the results of some exhaust on my face or something. So
have you thought of greeting him with thank you for being here and doing this hard job in order to keep our lives safer?
Well,
start with gratitude, with admiration.
Yes, well, that's a tough one, that's for sure. When I had other things in mind at the time, but yeah, I treated him with respect the whole time. So there was no real friction. It was just the annoyance that, to me, it should have been the truck driver that got arrested, not me. He seems to be a total opposite of where the emphasis should be, to my mind. And I'm planning on taking that particular event to court and arguing the point in court that it was just not fair to me, and that I'm under a higher law that does not include the laws of speeding. It includes the laws of self-survival, and that it's not okay to degrade or demean another soul or physical existence, as it says here. And I was definitely being degraded and demeaned at that time, and was further demeaned by getting a speeding ticket while I was trying to stop being degraded and demeaned by this highly allergic toxic substance that are highly allergic for me and many people like me, 10% of the population. And I felt that it's time for that to come up and be an issue rather than be in the background. So we'll see how the court case pans out and whether I can invoke a higher law and have the jurisdiction of the courts not prevalent in this case, Your Honor. So,
did that happen near the end of the month, Rick?
Near the end. It would have been near the end of last month, yeah.
Right, because he probably forgot to mention that his boss has a quota. You know, he has to write so many tickets, and when it gets near the end of the month and the quota is not met, some of the tickets that are written are kind of borderline, you know, to make that quota.
The whole thing is borderline. They hide under an expressway overpass and just ding people left and right. And the only place you can pass before this uphill one-lane highway with high speeds normally. So anyway, it's neither here nor there. It's just interesting how these situations come up and we can approach them in different ways, and what is the way of going forward with by elevating the souls of others and by elevating a situation.
Have you ever tried to take the other party's shoes? I mean, to get his role, to enter his role. Try to become himself in that contact in between. You see, people have so many stereotypes.
That's why I asked him, Chandler. That's why I asked him. I just trying to understand. I just said, I have total compassion for you. I don't understand how you could be here all day in this environment.
You handled the situation beautifully.
Yeah, you did. And, you know, I've been behind those smoky diesels, and they won't kill you, but they'll make you wish you were dead.
Well, yes, and I go through that every single day. I'm made nauseous by my environment that way. Every single day I feel nausea. And
it doesn't kill you instantly. It kills you in 18 years.
Oh, that's right. And it does. And that's what I'm finding now. So that's the deal. And it's been way more than 18 years for me. So I'm on the edge literally every time when I take more than one lungful. Then I'm toast. My brain starts to go away, and I just get dizzy, sick, and everything else. I feel like I want to die, literally. And the only thing I want to do is get out of that environment. Fight or flight kicks in. I will do anything to get out of there. Look out. And that includes passing trucks on double lines or whatever it takes. I don't care at that point, because I have to get out of that environment. And you know, it radically affects me, and I have to really fight to control my urges at that time. They're so powerful. And it's so
a tough physical condition, but let's talk about the soul condition, or the interaction in between souls.
Right. Well, that's really the important part, isn't it? So
yeah. So you gave the inspiration to talk about this. So how about if you see, people have so many preconceptions, they have so many stereotypes. When you are driving a car and you see a policeman stops you or comes toward you, maybe some people have the idea in such a position that they have the preconception, oh, he will do something bad to me and so on. But meanwhile, think about being the policeman who has to stop you. And maybe he has also some stereotype and preconceptions, say, oh, it will be a rude person, and he will look at me like at a piece of garbage or whatever. So he has also emotions about. Try to put yourself in the shoes of the other, and you will see how much smoother will be the communication if you can see the viewpoint of both parties. So don't just use your own viewpoint in your role into that position, but try to get the both viewpoints, or if there are several ones, to oversee the viewpoints of all participants. And you'll find solutions much easier.
Good point, Shandor.
Even though if somebody tries to mug you, to rob you on a street, in a dark street somewhere in the suburbs of some bad famed district, that who tries to rob you, think about what's in his mind, what's he thinking about.
Yeah, what leads him to be that desperate and so on. There's an example.
And he has also the fears for how about if you will be stronger than him or faster. Sometimes if you understand that, you just look at him with a smile and everything stops. It will be no any conflict finally.
Guy gave an example one time, a story that was quite interesting. I see Arno has his hand up. We'll get to you in a minute there, Arno. I just wanted to relay this that got triggered for me. He told me this amazing story where he was confronted one time in Montreal, I think it was, in a sort of a darker side of town or whatever, and he was outside on the street, and he was confronted by this gang that circled him and started sort of poking at him and teasing him and kind of giving him a hard time. And he wrote right away, he was able to turn the situation completely around. It was a very tense situation where they looked like they were going to beat him up, and he was starting to sort of have to think about how to fend off, but there was a lot of them, they were tough, and he was in a bind. So what Guy did was he reached in his pocket and he pulled out these special pebbles that he'd found earlier. These like, they were some kind of fossil-like pieces, and he had a bunch of them, and he said, "Look, you guys, look what I've got here that I got today, and I want to give you guys some. Here, look, here's one of these for you, and for you, look, here's another one. These are so cool. Don't you think they're great?" And he got their attention, and he won them over. And actually, I don't know if he actually made friends with them, but he certainly was able to bring a smile to their face and actually interact with them in such a way that it just shocked them into being friends rather than enemies. And he lost some of his fossils or pebbles or whatever he had, these special rocks that he picked up. But he turned around the situation completely, just in the snap of the fingers, basically. And I thought that was a great example of how to change something from something that could have some undesirable outcome to something that had a positive outcome for those that were involved, both sides. So Arno, we can let you talk there if you can get a word in edgewise over me and Shandor.
That's concerning your story, because in the beginning, when you start experimenting with this, you won't succeed in one moment. But when the officer is at home, his soul starts to awaken because he's not on a daily job then, and he's free of his duty. Maybe he's showering or laying in the bed and thinking about you, and what you sent to him in the car, he receives later when he's ready. But the other guy you're talking about, he's a little bit further. He knows how to manage in some conflicts. You learn it when you have. I worked there one time, and there was a guy who had a gun. He wanted to shoot me because I was working there, and I was new, I was young, And I was saying to my colleague that that he has to stay in the bar because they are taking beer from the tap when he's pulling around. But I don't say it sneaky. I say it openly. I don't like to be sneaky because those people are like not the big guys, but the so-called big guys. And then he came, and then I said to him, I don't going to be afraid for you. If you want to shoot me. But you are a guest here, and we are doing all our best to give you a good time. But when you do this, we can't give you a good time, not the freedom to be free again. Because then we have to maintain order, blah, blah, blah. Then the whole soul of the creation is gone, what we have here. He understands. And I was young, I was 17 years, working on Saturday too. Then I had the kitchen on my own, and I get from him every week a big tip from that day. We became friends. Because we like, in some moments we just running a program. And the officer is running a program to give you a text of final. I don't know how to call it in English. We call it boete. And we had papers long time ago, 3 papers, paper 1, paper 2, paper 3. And one of those 3 you did not supposed to have in the car, because if someone steals your car, they can write the car over. But I always had cheap cars, so I let it in. And if I was arrested, they always are mad. They want to give you a final, blah, blah, blah. They ask you papers, and then they see you have 3 papers. Then they think they are bigger than you because they're smart. They know you don't know that. They want to explain. And if you listen and be nice and listen again, and like kicking a little bit his ego, he forgets to write the final because you listen to him. He thinks he's your daddy. And so you can change the outcome of those short offense. Yeah, that was how I did when I started driving a car.
I see. So your friendly tip of the week is keep that extra insurance paper in your car, and keep the cops wondering. Yep.
Yeah, thanks. But before we had 3, I did it always like this, because they like everyone. If you listen to every soul likes to be listened to. Know what I mean? If someone understands what you mean, not hear what you say, but understand what you bringing, then it's very fine for you because you feel yourself heard. It's like when I was a carpenter, I learned the best magic when I had to teach someone else. When I started carpenting, I could not read papers, how to draw and how to do it. But I had to learn it to someone else because I know what to do. People told me what to do before. And then I have to told other ones. And I think, so I first put everything in place so other ones could follow. And then I start learning how to explain drawings and that things in the construction. Yeah. But if you listen, the other one is always glad, because remember, we all want to give and we all want to take, because we don't know yet what we know, but the normal stream of the last century is not like that. We did not, the most did not knew that we must empathize. When you give to the other and the other gives back, then you don't steal. But when you, like I have my girl, she don't like to talk about emotion. She's still, she's like a little bit hiding behind I'm damaged, because she thinks it's not beautiful. Even if the whole world around her changed, she still is like that. But sometimes I have a little bit, like I become materialized, because I get a little bit, I want her to know, and I feel like she don't try to understand me. And then I say that in a normal way. But because that is close, you cannot do very good. But if it's like you, I know you're going tomorrow to your job or to do something special, and I'm intended with you, that is so much stronger because we don't have a physical connection. We only have soul connection. Know what I mean? My first soul exchange was with a monk when I was 7 or 8, with a stranger. Eh? And I dreamt. I was not sleeping. It was before I fell asleep. I was in his temple, and I saw the souls searching for him through animals. And 4 years later, he was for the first time on television in Europe. And then I already saw it, because it's going to change, because he's going to be in need for money and for this and that, because the society is created that way. If someone is like that, the whole mouth of our world is going to open to swallow that guy. Because he is free, he's liberated. And then they start like bringing the environment. You need money, you need this, you need that. Otherwise you can't achieve to take care of the animals, because all the things are going to change. And then all the people is going to be there with their expectation, and then it's not good, because their expectation also give a little input in the outcome. Yeah, and it's happened. It was not a good way, but I think he's now in his own peace again, and that's good. Yeah. But that part was for me very hard to cope, because I did not understand why I visited that man before sleep and after going to bed. And 4 years later, it was a real person. Yeah. Okay. But it's the listen factor. But you communicate both ways. You communicate in here. And when you know what you say, the other one also knows what you say normally, if there is no emotion in between. But if we don't know exactly, we cannot see it, we cannot visualize it, we can only say words. And I think that is what Sandro means to explain. We have to see what we tell. And everybody, I was amazed 2 weeks ago how somebody I met now 6 months, she is director of a school, and how she woke up, how she follows the same knowledge without learning the knowledge, only by sharing. And then I saw she was on a T-turn, you come left and right, but both ways are not the fair way. Straight ahead is the fair way, but the system was not allowing that. And then they start suffering, and I saw the body eating itself. And then I was talking with her, and I explained her the emotional part, the soul factor, and how it's working, and she understands right away. But before, we never shared one word, only my soul. So it's so good. They get it. But sometimes later, we also have that. Think about when you have some moments in your life when you learn something, but not on that moment. But 2 or 3 weeks later, you are very glad that bad thing happens to you. Otherwise, you did not receive that knowledge or that peace you need, or some completion of yourself. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Arno, for your observations there. Anybody else like to go ahead with a comment or observation at this point? I see there's a number of comments in the chat here. Trying to see if there's anything that I should bring up. You see Estella says, if everybody understands and there's abundance for everybody and unlimited potential, why to feel different or compete? It's a win-win on all levels, brings to peace, mode, and cooperation. No need for friction, only politeness to share experiences. Win-win. And Waldemir goes on that section 1/5 of his section of the Galactic Codex, of whatever, he's got a link there in the live stream. Each sentient being has an inalienable and unconditional right to freedom. This subsection provides that every being has an unlimited potential of growth and life experience. And he goes on to say, since all beings in the liberated universe create only positivism, their freedom never opposes the freedom of other beings. Okay.
Rick?
Go ahead.
May I say something? I'm just thinking, as long as are there words used? I know Mr. Keshe says there's nothing written. You'll never find anything written in space. Are there words in space? My thoughts are that as long as we're using this voice box, as with this structure, we can only talk about what we think we understand. So if we're using words in the matter state, so to speak, or words, we're always going to not have a complete understanding of the other person's intention or meaning until we get to the zero-time communication. And then at that point, there'll be a perfectly clear understanding. And we're there a lot with the words, but I think it'll be so much clearer when we get to the zero-time communication, and I'll understand exactly what your intentions are, and you'll understand exactly what my intentions are, what we're trying to work on together.
Yes, definitely. That makes sense.
May I add something? We already have that. Because when you met someone for the first time, you see what his intention is, but you have learned at school not to go on the first side. Because when you accept everyone, when they start talking, they are always different, because then you are listening to the meta state, you become friends. And always after the friendship, how it breaks up, what's exactly the way, how you saw it going to be, because that person is that person in life or at that moment. Now we know we can elevate. And if we understand the other, we become the other. You can share thoughts, and when you are gone, it's already with that person. But we just don't realize it. The most people don't realize it. But how many people using their guts for what they need to be intended in life? There are people who are doing that. But in the 80s and in the 70s, in my country, they go to the nuts house. But I saw the system is going backwards because all the nuts are in the nuts house. But I think they are maybe 80% of the nuts are misunderstood. And they are projectors of good life, because you're nuts, but you wish the other a good life. That's why they are nuts, right? In the normal way of thinking. And they get in their own lives a little bit suffering, because they suffer because the other souls suffer, and then start falling it apart, and then getting pills, and only to go further down. But they know now it's not the good way. The good way is to understand and to learn from each other. The most things I learned before I came to the Keshe Foundation, I learned from people who are in the normal thoughts crazy. You know what? Understand what I tried to say? Hello?
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Yeah. Do you understand? Try to explain. Because the others were a little bit erased with the knowledge they have they have to maintain, because if you don't maintain knowledge, you have all the knowledge there is through your observation and your soul, because we have learned to memorize and maintain knowledge. It's a particle. But if you don't memorize knowledge, it's a wave. And then you see all the outcomes of possibilities of one part. Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Knowledge is a wave, not a particle. Or it can be, let's say. Can be looked at that way. Okay, anybody else with a...
You are growing, I see it. Many are growing. You are feeling also, a couple of months ago you said you wish that you had do that and do that. But the only way what was in your way, now you see it as your own knowledge. But 3 months ago, you did not accept it as your own knowledge. When somebody asked, you always said, Mr. Keshe said, and now I hear you saying, like, you see it, but this, that, just so, and you said, you explain it. So I see you growing very fast too, Rick. But you don't see it yourself yet, because you are in the middle of your own experience. But I love you. I love everybody. I'm very glad when I see people open up. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, very good, Arno. Okay. Jalal says, you love me? We all love you, Jalal. Don't worry. And we love we too. In fact, there's a song that we're trying to come up with in the Keshe Foundation music and art class in the private teaching. And I think the name of the song is going to end up being called Do You Hear We? Not Do You Hear Me, but Do You Hear We? In a tribute to you, Jalal. So thank you for that contribution that you didn't know you had to the song title. And originally it was going to be Do You Hear Me? But someone astutely noted that it should be Do You Hear We? I think it might have been Peggy, someone else in that class. Yes, it was Peggy. I'll peg it on you, Peggy. So thank you for that song title, Do You Hear We? And it's going to end up being, we were talking about earlier here about dialogue and this cross conversation and being able to get a message out and have it heard, not just to speak, but to be heard and understood. Well, in this song that we are creating, we're attempting to produce interspecies communication and to have one species talk through their voice. It might be a whale sound or it could be a bird song, and have the other species understand that sound. And the way we can do that is by, for example, in interspecies communication song, we're doing it by slowing down or speeding up the sounds of various species so that other species, so it sounds like the sounds of other species. So what you can do is you can in essence, speed up a long moaning whale sound to make it sound exactly like a robin chirping. And you can take a robin sound and slow it down and make it sound just like a whale sound when it's slowed down. So I figure if we can have the whales talk to the robins and the robins talk to the whales through a little manipulation of the sound wave, then perhaps we can even have humans being able to communicate a little better with these species as well. So trying to bring forth this dialogue between all of the species and doing it through an elevation, through just respecting them as a being, and that why not? Why wouldn't any species be able to communicate with other species? I mean, they generally do anyway. It's just we don't really pay enough attention to it. All the different intricate things that are going on in various species.
Do you think when the lion sleeps in the same nest as the lamb, they'll understand each other? I do.
I wonder if we can take a lion sound and speed it up and make it sound like a lamb sound and vice versa. And then get them to just talk to each other a little bit, work out their differences. Bingo. A little dialogue, elevation of the soul of each other. And there's that hunger factor that we have to take care of somehow. That hunger factor enters in, and that can be a problem. But maybe with the right GANs combination or the field connection, even that can be overcome. Jalal, maybe we can, whoops, didn't mean to do that. I think I muted you instead of wanted to make you into a panelist here. I'm not sure what happened. Let's see.
It's no problem. It's no problem.
There
But I
oops, I put you into a panelist and I cut you off there. You'll come through in just about 3, 2, 1, right about now. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I miss Caroline. Do we miss her in one station? Because we are going very fast.
Well, she should be coming back in probably 5 or 10 minutes here or something. She said she was going to be out for about half an hour with moving and so on going on. So it's pretty busy at her end right now. So we're trying to carry it through here.
Okay, because I didn't hear when she went.
Yeah, she's got things going on today and a bad sort of connection happening, and will be mobile and whatnot, and was out since I think about maybe 20 minutes ago or so, and for half an hour, she said. So we're playing it by ear here and winging it moment by moment. So do you have anything else you'd like to add, Jalal?
It's one thing for this, the new researchers who's coming to us in this teachings, that he must see what is inside him. There is a universe, and it contains a lot of millions of souls. And if he achieve this peace within himself, I think it's more than achieving peace with the other human being, because he have inside him not 700 million, but millions and millions of souls. And in a way, it's in his physical existence, you know. So he need to achieve this peace with his inside souls. And if he achieve it, I think it's very, very easy for him to achieve peace with everyone and elevated them. Because we are speaking about one entity and we forget we have a universe inside us. This is the point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jalal. Now, Lucas mentions, we brought up whales and so on, and he had also made some comments earlier about, for example, the plastic pollution in the seas. And he has a thing about that. He wants to come up with a solution for the plastic pollution in the seas. And that's a big issue. And he has some other comments here about people maybe I should read it here. Okay, I'll go ahead and read his thing in the chat from Lucas. If people do meet day after day, week after week, month by month, eventually they create what some call a sacred space, whether the place is a cathedral or some place that's impregnated with this subtle energy that can be channeled, focused, or directed to whatever they desire. But you cannot succeed in this mission without so many others being influenced, because we are entangled, truly connected at that level. Subtle energies work in the universe and can be led by people who are sufficiently evolved, developed, and coherent for a common good, or can be used for other non-altruistic purposes. The universe consists of microscopic structures and a harmonic geometric grid that produces cause and effect, so that nothing is random. Everything is being produced consciously or unconsciously in this hologram. A hologram is basically a coherent energy pattern, and the pattern has a three-dimensional character in a space-time frame that represents a particular information. Imagine if everyone understood, this is our cathedral. Knowledge is cathedral. Okay, and later on he mentions, but Rick, in the directions that things are going, it won't last any species. Whales and dolphins are slaughtered every day in some country to traditions. Well, yes, whales and dolphins are being slaughtered. There's also 30,000 humans that'll be slaughtered today just from the breathing of the burning of fuels on this planet. But we keep forgetting about the humans are killing themselves way more even than the dolphins, whales, and the other species. But it's yeah, it's part of this thing that humans have to learn to give up, this killing of virtually any species that's in front of them, depending. I'm not saying everyone's like that, and not many of us are actually. It's just a minority that makes the living by slaughtering. And that might be hard to understand in many ways, but if we put ourselves, like Chandra was saying earlier, put ourselves in the shoes of those others and just understand that they are doing what they're doing because of their habits and their particular environment, the makeup and cultures and everything else that led to that event, are part of that environment. And we don't need to necessarily indulge and partake in that. In fact, it almost becomes invisible when you start the act of simply giving from your soul and elevating others, because that's the whole game, really. And if there weren't the others to elevate, then there wouldn't be the game to play. So in a way, that's things like when you mention whales and dolphins slaughtered, well, that's an area that someone could put attention onto and find ways to elevate those that are doing such things. And that's could be part of your life work to engage in that. Or you might want to, there's literally thousands of other types of beings on this planet that one could want to help protect or try to, what the Waldemar say, try to divide and protect from the negative actions of other beings. So is that, if that's your intention in life, if that's your main thing that you need to do is divide and protect others, well, that's, I suppose that's one of the things that that gets done by sentient beings in this universe. One of the jobs, you might say, job descriptions of sentient beings in the universal way. What do others think? Waldemar asks, can we elevate all? I would suggest it may be possible that all are being elevated at this point in the planet.
First try with one step at a time.
Yes, and work with what's immediately in front of you is the key thing. Not to try to, I mean, we can offer a blessing or some sort of give from our soul to the earth or all of the beings on the planet. But usually there's something in particular that comes up for us that we find due to our discernment that we feel needs to be elevated. And usually that includes ourselves, number one, as Mr. Keshe has suggested in the past. If you want to elevate others, then the first thing you do is elevate yourself. Sounds selfish, but you must be elevated in order to elevate others in a way. So, and it doesn't necessarily take 20 years of training. It can all be done in an instant. Just instantly elevate others. Do it. It can all be done in literally an instant. Go ahead. Was that John I heard in the background there?
No, that was me.
Oh.
It is not, because in the beginning I explained I put what I knew under the classes, because I thought this life was not this life. This moment was not the moment before. But when I came, I started elevating myself because I want to elevate the others. It's not selfish. Because if you want to elevate only yourself, you elevate, but not in the direction of the unconditional giver. And then you can only reach a certain level. Because if you only elevate yourself, it's because you want something to have in your life. But if you want to elevate others, you elevate yourself too. But if you give to others without making a choice how much you want to give, then they can drain you and it can backfire and lower you. But if you choose what you exactly want to give, how much you can give, how much is needed, sometimes you only need a small spark. In another position, you need a big spark. But if you use a big spark where the small spark is needed, you push that the one from the position too far away to understand what was happening. And in the other way, if you give by a big spark a small spark, it's only eating, but not developing. Yeah. Okay.
Rick, may I say something?
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
Well, I think we abuse ourselves, we abuse others, countries abuse each other, and so on, and it's all for a lack of knowledge. Now, Mr. Keshe said, if we're going to upgrade 7 billion people through the classic method of university and so on and teaching, it'll take 1,000 years, if you're lucky. So something's going to happen. It's not going to be done in the way we think it's going to be done, even though maybe it will. We'll elevate each other somehow. Mr. Keshe said to find the area of the brain that absorbs and creates knowledge. So this might be one of the keys in achieving this, because when you have the knowledge, you're going to be elevated, and they're in turn elevating others. So it's that area of the brain, and I remember him specifically saying that in the workshop, to find that area of the brain that can absorb and create knowledge.
All right. Good advice. Go ahead. Is that Arno? Go ahead.
That's me. It's not in your brain. Sorry. I learned it from my girlfriend's aunt. I could talk with her because I came for her soul. But other people, even the teacher one who has to nurturing the people with dementic issues, could not talk with her. She was deaf. She did not understand. And if she wanted to try to understand the words, she could not understand because her brain was left out. But when I talk with her, I was one-to-one with her. We are in our own dimension, and we sit like in our plasmatic room of two souls. Because with every soul, you have another dimension. And I could always talk with her. And then last time I saw Mr. Keshe drawing that someone without above cap of the brain and could not radiate. But if you create games that can create that same radiation, he can walk without the brain, without the big brains. So it's not in the brain. It is like the place how crows, ravens are communicating with each other because they are a little bit more developed than other creatures around me. Because they have that the cone part in the brain. And I find out our soul also have the cone part. But because we did not use it, it was less developed. But I think if we learn to use that part and we stay meta state, our brains become cones again. Because you need, you know the Ganesha statue in the circle of fire, right? I was there in the elevator because there is a very frightened dog, a pit bull in my flat, other people, and I understand she's afraid. So I tried to explain her. She don't have to be afraid, and I put my weapons down, my hands are weapons in her eyes. And then she came to me. She think, "Oh, you want to be my friend?" She was very happy and she wanted to come, but because she could not come too close, she can only come to me and not in me, and she stand between my hands, she start falling back. And I think everything I do, she gonna bite. I knew it. So I did nothing. And I go inside me and there's blue. Blue was around me. And there I can communicate with the dog. I also one time had it when I had a friend with the dog. She hates me. She didn't like me, but when she had puppies, I let her because I respect her choice. But then she had puppies, and she sat on one, and it was bulldog. They are not very good with moving their bodies. So I looked to her. I said, "Sorry, now you have no choice. Now it's for your puppy, and now I'm gonna take her under you out because otherwise you're gonna die." And I took the puppy out, and we became biggest friends. She hated me because I was reading her mind. She did not like. She felt like I was invading her privacy. But after I saved the puppy, we became big friends. But our paths changed, and my friend was going to other direction as if so we lose each other in life. 2 years later, I saw them. I came to their home one time to talk a little like that, and I watched the dog. She called Buffy. And she hates me the same as before, but now she hates me because I left her behind. Yeah, but you can talk with every animal. One time I saw elephant was very mad on YouTube. He was running. He wanted to kill all the people because all the people are not nice. And one moped passes by and saw what's happening. He right away stopped his bike, stand on the side of the road in namaste houding. And the elephant was running and running. He wanted to kill him because he was the easy one. And he stopped right when he almost hit that guy. She bows. She was whining because she also did not understand what was happening. But her soul understands that this creature in the human had no bad intention to the elephant. Even if the elephant killed that man, he was not mad at the elephant. He understood why. And therefore the elephant did not took his life. Yeah. You can do it. You try it with mosquitoes. So they don't bug you anymore, right? I have one mosquito, like quantum mosquito. He comes, he go under my clothes, only to try to hit him, because I decide not to hit bugs anymore a long time. But when we were talking, it was like the old well was open, and the mosquito I fed with my soul, he was trying me to when I was asleep. But every time when I woke up, I did not hit him because I pulled my deken, I pull it up, I said go, and then he goes again. Yeah. That was it.
Okay, thank you, Arno. Any other comments? Is Caroline, are you back yet? I don't see her unmuting, so I guess she's still busy commuting and not unmuting. And this part seems to be important at this point. From every atom to plants, animals, humans, insects, microbes, and more, and all those yet to be discovered, are souls which share the essence of the Creator, as well as the fields of planet Earth. Together we combine to make up the collective soul of the planet.
And that's the key, Mr. Keshe said. When the collective soul is elevated, you'll achieve the world peace. Could you please? Okay? Yes.
Are you still okay, Rick? Can you miss me for another half an hour?
Oh, sure, we will carry on here. Any words any words of direction as in passing here, or shall we just carry on? We found a few things to work with.
Apparently you're working fine. So if you can miss me for half an hour more, then it should be okay.
Okay, I'm sure I'll get support here as we go along. People are starting to get warmed up.
How much you pay?
Oh, I give you all a good, nice cup of coffee when I come back. I'm freezing my butt off, so it's not that I'm very warm.
Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you, Caroline.
See you later. Thank you very much, all of
Okay.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I was just going to ask you, Rick, where's the captain of this ship anyway? And then she popped in.
The captain is we, Mark. The captain is we.
I know.
And that's the thing about this technology or this teaching, it seems like, that we're all the captain.
Totality of us.
Invariably, there are those that tend to be more leader types, I suppose, or tend to be sticking out more than others at the front somehow. But it's really a totality. It really is that we each become our own creator, each have the opportunity to expand that potential as much as we wish and to limit ourselves as much as we wish. So it's quite a opportunity and responsibility at the same time. And yet it's, in a way, it's all hidden as well. It's not really the physicality actions that are so important as the feeling or mood or intention that's behind the actions or the even inaction. Just the a feeling that there's not necessarily a cycle of action.
Well, I know in space, eventually the mouth will close, not eating and probably not talking. So I think we're also right. We can learn to do it right here as well. We have it as well.
Yep. Well, we're so used to the idea of breathing, like, and if you were ever in a circumstance where you've had to hold your breath, like underwater, for example, and you're just struggling to hold your breath, and you're maybe being pushed down by a wave or stuck in some sort of vortex or something, and then struggling to keep that last breath. Well, in the vacuum of space, we don't have that opportunity. So we have to learn to get by without breath, perhaps, and even without the physicality, and eventually, at least. So this is a pretty big idea, and it's only due to our environment here with the gravity and the atmosphere, which is quite an exception in the universe. When you look at the rest of our, just the tiny solar system that we have here compared to the whole universe, there's not a lot in the way of oxygen available anywhere else in the solar system other than planet Earth here. It just happens to have the ideal conditions for our particular physicality makeup, and this time around their DNA is all geared up for that Mr. Cohn COHN amino acid and other combinations through the interaction of the oxygen and so on. And if we were just simply go a few miles, even a mile high in our atmosphere, we find it difficult to breathe. And if you're 2 miles high, then it's near impossible. We have to have additional oxygen in order to climb these highest mountains and so on. Let alone say 50 miles up or 100 or 1,000 miles off the surface of the Earth. So then we have to bring systems with us to protect us, to create the environment that we're used to in our physicality form. But maybe there's a different medium that we move into when Mr. Keshe, for example, talks about going to space, which he often means going to space without a spaceship. How do we create that protective environment, or does our soul need that protective environment in order to exist? Maybe it enjoys the environment of space because it's less limiting than the environment of our atmosphere and our what we know as gravity and so on.
Well, I just wanted to add that when you were and I was a competitive swimmer for a number of years, but when you were talking about, so I know about being underwater and holding your breath till the very, very even longer than the last moment. And the emotion I felt was what Mr. Keshe had said, that everything strives towards life. And the other words, and that's why we don't have to kill or destroy anything. I wanted to add that.
Everything strives toward life. Okay.
That's why the planet is so valuable, because it's not that common. It's creating life in the oceans and the salts and all. So everything strives towards life. You know, at that last breath, and you're waiting and you want to get to the air, that emotion right there, striving towards life.
And when we pass, do we strive towards space? Because at one point we have to let go of that last breath. And perhaps that's where the real magic actually begins, when that struggle is given up and the process of transformation actually begins. Because there's no such thing as actual death being an end. There's death being a transformation. But when you look at anything, the death of a plant or an animal, if you even just look at the physicality end of things, it's not like everything is dead and becomes unlife after that. There's the results of that being what we call dying or passing, might be a better word, is life for other beings, whether it's bacteria and worms and so on, or some other higher life form, like what we call higher. I don't know if there's a higher and lower, but maybe the death of some animal will be the food substance for some other animal. I mean, commonly most people eat meat in our planet, and it's becoming even more prevalent as day by day. And so these animals are transforming from what we call alive to what we call dead, but they actually might become food for us, for example, and allow us to continue our life, to elevate others, to do the good deeds that we do, or things that we do through our life to carry on this whole thing of life, the whole life process, that wriggling alive mass that we call life.
But I didn't really mean the matter state. Maybe the word I should have used is everything strives towards existence.
Now this is what I wanted to bring up, because when we talk about life, to me, that's only one of the aspects of existence. Because if you look at it, For example, what about birth? Isn't birth important? Wasn't there some urge there to exist before birth, that the soul became what we call born or manifested in this environment? Does that soul even get born, or does it die? Is it exist in a different form, perhaps, or something?
Or
So,
it just manifests and then transmutes.
right. So the idea I wanted to bring up is that there's life, yes, and it's true that that's important. But what if we also look at birth, and that birth is another aspect of existence? It's a part of existence, that there's things being born right now at this moment, literally in front of our faces, or you know, at the hospital up the street, or at the farm nearby, or in the forest here with the birds, or there's, you know, beings being born, just billions of beings all over the planet. Literally every second, every microsecond, there's new births happening. So you could view everything in terms of birth, that it was just a planet full of birth. There's all these beings coming into existence every moment, just beings and beings and beings. It's not about life, it's about birth and birthing and creating, that act of creation, not the act of life, you could say. But then there's the other aspect of existence that comes up that we discuss, called death. And it's a process that we go through as part of our existence, and some see it as the end of the existence, but perhaps it's only yet another aspect of existence, and then perhaps it goes back to birth, life, death, etc. It's just another cycle. Another cycle begins at the point of death. It's always a new cycle that begins at the end of any cycle. And that includes the actions that we do from day to day. You know, just being in this meeting, for example, it'll have a beginning, a middle, eventually an end here, and we'll go about and start another action cycle of doing something else. There'll be a birth after the death of this workshop. There'll be the birth that people will be birthing into a new activity, a new cycle of things they'll be doing for the rest of their day or night or whatever it is. So we could say that in our existence here, we go through birth, life, death in every action cycle that we do, whether it's picking your nose or going to the store or whatever action it might be, giving from your soul. There'll be a beginning, middle, and end to that action cycle, a birth, a life, and a death to it. Now, the other aspect, there's actually, according to some deep Tibetan teachings, there's actually 4 aspects to existence. So we have birth, life, death, and then there's something they have in Tibetan Buddhism, which is called, or could be translated as transit or transition, the between lives state. So between death and rebirth, they could say that there's a transition, there's this transition period, or between birth and life, there's a transition, or between life and death, another transition. And that state of transit is actually closer to our native state, our real state, because it's in that state of transition, of change. If we can learn to be in that, then we're never away from home. We're never caught in a situation that would be overwhelming to us, because we're always able to be in transit. And if you know, it's a way of approaching life, you could say. The big aspect of life, including birth, life, death, and all of it, from a perspective of transit, as a being that is in that moment experiencing or undergoing certain activities, actions, or events, but not necessarily with this perspective just of life, or just that some people have a perspective just of death, that everything's just, the end is near, everything's the end, and they can only see the end part of things, or the negative part of things, or that things are always falling apart. There's others that only see the goodness, and they don't even bother with the things that are falling apart and all that end of it, and they're only into the birthing of great new creative ideas and a constant flow of creation, without maybe having the other aspects getting involved. So there's these different parts of existence that sometimes we don't consider, and I'm just introducing this idea of transit, of transition, of the perception of being in the place of transit rather than in the physicality life experience as such, or the physicality birthing of new stuff experience, and the death experience, the ending experience. Okay, I've talked enough. Rick Newcomb has his hand up, so if you want to go ahead there, Rick.
Hi, everybody. It's Rick from Colorado. So I want to continue this conversation that Mark brings up about, you know, the eagerness to exist, or things keep existing. And I have this plant. We've had it for like, I don't know, over 20 years or something. It's called pothos. And somebody told me recently that this plant doesn't exist out in the wilderness, and that if it wouldn't be for people keeping it in a pot, it wouldn't be alive. So he told me that these plants want to die. So then I'm feeling bad about my house plant, that maybe doesn't want to be here. And anyway, recently we decided to put some cuttings into our fish tank and let the plant part hang out. And we thought the roots would grow really big and long down to the bottom maybe. But what's happening is the roots are growing, but also the stems are growing, and there's a different kind of leaves underwater. And so I'm pretty sure this plant doesn't want to die. It wants to exist, and it's changed its conditions to live underwater. And he still has his big regular leaves hanging outside the tank, but the leaves in the water are more tiny. I don't know, they just look more round, but they're a vivid green, just like on the outside. So this plant has changed its conditions to exist, and obviously has a desire to thrive. Anyway, I thought it was a good correlation.
That's a sure nice story, Rick. That plant is happy.
He's happy. And I'm happy that he wants to keep living. That is really funny. But I think that brings up another conversation too, that this plant doesn't exist in nature. But even though he's in my house, like, it's nature, right? This is our nature. We live in nature. We are nature. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Rick. Stella, did you have something you wanted to say? Not sure if your hand was up, or you're able to speak there if you'd like.
May I ask something to Rick of his underwater?
Sure.
Did the leaves who are underwater also create amino acids on the top of the water? Because if you maybe collect them and create three equinox, like only the paper, the rounds like the equinox in the bowl, and paint it with that, then you can also help other plants, I presume. I don't know sure, but the plant wishes to survive, and it creates the leaves on the water. So the amino acids are there, and the field is becoming there of the creation that the leaves has created, and he feeds by that field. Understand what I try to explain?
Yes.
It's the same as in nature. Try to collect some of that amino acids. Maybe you can, other plants who have a bad time, you can maybe give also the fields of that, and then. But ask on the soul of the plant if you are allowed. You feel if it's or not. Try it. Play it. Nobody sees you're crazy. Play time. Yeah, it's cool.
That's a wonderful idea. I hadn't thought of it.
Next year, I put empty bowls in the. We call it in Dutch sloot. I don't know how to call it in English. It is like the grasslands with the water in between. And when there is the leaves in the water and amino acids come, that's creating the crows, the small green plants with only 3 or 4 leaves. Mm-hmm. When they hit the amino acids, it sinks to the bottom and becomes quantum loop with the GANs on the bottom, and then it becomes crows. And when I was young, there was a ball in but inside the ball it was become green of the field of the amino acid, and now I understand, because that time I did not understand. But it was the same feeling as the golden plasma ball. Because when it was storming, all things were like left, right, but that ball only goes up and down, did not go left or right. I knew as a child, I was very amazed. It did not move as it's supposed to move, but nobody understands what I was telling that time. So I want to recreate it, because I think when I can create that field from there, and then in the Starship formation, then it's a cradle of life. I know it for sure, because the small plant has been eating, falls on the grass, and that's been eating by the grass and been eating by the cows. And so the amino acids comes in the body of the animals to the man. So I told my girl today again how I have heard the world, because I thought the grease on the water, that was the way I saw it, was dirt, but that was the magic of life. I did not know that time. Yeah, and will try next year when it starts all over again. Then, because the towns, they cut the leaves out of the water everywhere, because they think it's rotting. But maybe that's also why there are not much insects, because there is not enough amino acids to feed all. They don't know. I already told a biologic professor. He was walking around, looking around, and taking some tests. And I took him on my journey, make notes of it, and I thought that I could create this knowledge with plasma science. And I think he's now also watching. I did not speak him anymore because he was not from the neighborhood. But he was very excited when I explained it. He never knew, but he saw it is true. Yeah. Okay. Good luck with your experiment. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing. And do you think the reason the ball moved up and down is because it had created, like you said, that infinity loop, and it was just only moved about the field?
The nano layer inside was created from the fields. And the fields inside the ball create its own containment. That was why the amino acids inside could be created to become green also.
Mm-hmm.
That is how I think it is. I'm not completely sure yet, but it was the fields who filled the bowl with the greenish inside. I have the same with my bowl in my house. Because it's plasmatic environment, I put clean water, demo water, vaporized, I don't know how to call it in English, vaporized water that I collected.
Distilled, you mean distilled water, I think.
Yeah. And when I put them next to my cactus, it becomes green. Because the cactus has so much feeling from the field that it radiates its happiness. And it's going into the barrel, and I have green water. But it's supposed not to be, because there was only demo water. No salt, nothing, but the fields. We programmed the water to become like greenish, like the inside of the cactus. Yeah. Like you have a glass of water, and you have an orange tree, and you go in the middle of two orange with your glass of water, you also taste the orange. Because those two oranges are connected. And they create also the free plasma, but we did not know. We always leave it. Mm-hmm. And in the 80s, there was some knowledge growing, but it was forgotten again somehow, because we realized the food was not having the feed what we needed. But one time I met, gypsy or Indian from India, I don't know exactly, but she knew if you look to the food, you take the nursery out, you're stealing from the one who is buying it the next day. And I thought, what is that? And it was always in my mind, staying in my mind. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But the ball was in his own gravitational field, in his own migraph field. That was why he only go up and down. Because the ball I now created with the honey in the beginning when I started, when it's storming outside and the ball has no containment to hold on, it don't go away in the wind. Only chairs are moved on the balcony. The trees are broken strings, but the ball lays on the same place. And then I realized what I have seen when I was 8 with the ball in the water. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Arno.
You're welcome, Rick.
Very good. Just wanted to repeat this part of the Constitution here. We acknowledge all other beings on this planet need to be supported, nurtured, and allowed to thrive in peace, including animals, plants, ecosystems, and other unseen beings, as well as Mother Earth herself. All will be supported to grow and thrive, as this will, in turn, enhance the lives not only on this planet, but all of the totality, as we acknowledge we are a part of the whole. Okay.
So the bottom line being, Rick, that once we all understand all souls are equal, this will achieve our desire.
Thank you, Mark.
So do you guys feel like using the climbing up a mountain and how the air gets thinner and we need equipment to help us, that we could be like this plant and just adapt to our new environment? But somehow, like, we put up a blockage so we don't adapt. We just end up leaving the physicality behind altogether and go off.
Well,
but what we learned is we won't have to give up our physicality. We could just change and adapt to our new environment.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was mentioned to me, was pointed out to me actually by a farmer friend a couple of days ago. And he happened to make a point of researching some of the ancient sites and this kind of thing. And he mentioned to me about Machu Picchu and how elevated it is. It's one of the highest civilized points in the world, apparently. And he pointed out that many of the monasteries and so-called sacred sites of the world are positioned in the very highest peaks or points of the particular area, like a mountain top, the top of a plateau and a large plains, and it'll usually be located in the highest location. And the original idea behind that is the priests and the people that were building these structures and cities and so on wanted to elevate themselves to be as high and as close to where they thought the gods were, the heavens or space, as they could, which is kind of silly in the physicality way, in a way, because often the valley would be where all the lush vegetation would be and where the food would be, the animals and all the sustenance, where your production would normally be located. So why would you want to be way up high in the mountain, away from all that? And yet this is what traditionally monasteries would be built in the highest points in the mountain. We even have the story of how sound was used to levitate the stones that were used to build a monastery way up on the side of a mountain when they had to bring the stones up from down below, levitated them with the particular configuration of trumpets and horns and drums.
It's a good point. Now, I wouldn't enter into the term of levitating stones, which we can discuss only as hypothetical. But why some plants like to stay close to the earth, and why other plants like high trees striving to go higher? What's the difference between low and high? What's the difference of the fields?
Mm-hmm.
What different fields are closer to the ground, and what kind of fields are higher? So maybe some kind of energies or some kind of fields which are different if you go higher than if you go lower. And I'd like just to say one simple example. My brother had the experiment life experience that he likes very much hiking, to go into the mountains, sometimes solitaire, alone, with a bag on his back, with a backpack. And once he planned a 2 weeks nice holiday into the Romanian Făgăraș mountains. And those are pretty high, about 2,000 meters. So because he knew he will need supplies for 2 weeks, he calculated scientifically, according to the best available dietetics instructions, how many kilocalories per day he needs, how much protein, how much lipids, how much carbohydrates, and so on. So he packed for those 2 weeks what he considered by calculation it has enough calories per day. And his surprise was, after third day, that he cannot eat even half of the daily portion, because he got replenished by the energy so strongly on those mountains. He couldn't take that food. So finally he left more than half of his stock somewhere hidden under the stones. Maybe some bears or wolves found it meanwhile. But actually the calculation of the energy needed and the calories, which was probably elaborated scientifically by experimentation, by physical exercise at the sea level or near to the sea level was not valid into the high mountains.
Good story.
So think about what energies you get there and what energies you get in the valley. It's quite different. You need to experience that, otherwise you have no idea of why.
Right, yeah. And which one would you feel more free in? The idea of freedom comes to mind. The higher we go, in a way, we become more free of the gravity of Earth, or we feel like we're more free.
Possible. I was born on the flatlands, but I always feel myself in my best medium when I am in the mountains.
I have a friend that did a skydiving on his 50th birthday a few days ago, and sent a picture of the obligatory selfie, of course. But it's just wanting to experience the a feeling of freedom, I think, that we would normally feel in space, where we're not constricted by gravity and the oppression of, or the oppression of the atmosphere, the pressure of the atmosphere, and this thing called gravity. I mean, look at the words that are associated with gravity, like grave, and like the gravity of the situation is like a heaviness. It's a certain pull, a grave situation. It's very serious, very important kind of serious situations. Gravity is, and look at the opposite to gravity is levity. Levity as in humor, and gravity as in, really heavy stuff that we can't have any humor with. And as opposed to levity, which gets everything going and kind of is able to make people pick them up and elevate and so on. So we have gravity and elevation are almost at opposite ends, you could say. And maybe that's why the higher we go, the more we feel like we're not under the effects of gravity. Mark mentions, I think the grav fields are reduced. That's why most feel elevated in the mountains. Okay, interesting. So, and he mentions Shandor's conveying about what Mr. Keshe says about mountains knowledge and fields. I think you're mentioning about the plants, the height of the plants, for example, what that Mr. Keshe has talked about before. Anything else that someone would like to add to that in our panelists, or I can remind the attendees, you can put your hand up and we can recognize you and make you into a panelist or allow you to speak. And we're starting to come up on 3 hours here, but we're also waiting to hear back from Caroline, so we might be here for a while till she comes back in. So I'll go on and just read the last part of this. Just to go back, this is the Constitution of the Earth Council, and I'll just put the link in the chat here once again so people have that.
Hello.
Ah, there's a familiar voice.
I'm alive.
Hey.
I'm back.
You're back from the front?
Yep. How is everything?
Well, things are good. We've been discussing a number of topics here, and have gotten through pretty much to the last part of the Constitution once again here. But we can carry on from virtually anywhere to wherever you'd like to go. I was just saying that we're coming up on 3 hours here, so it's getting on, but whatever people would like to bring up and carry on with would be fine. And how would you like to take things as well, Caroline?
I'm definitely going to listen to all of you. That's for sure. And I see we have a lot of comments.
Yes, and we were just discussing, for example, the idea of people wanting and cultures settling on higher elevations in the world. Like you find monasteries or certain cities are built on the very highest peaks of the mountains. And people like to go into the mountains to hike and to feel more free somehow, or to feel it helps their spirit. And Mark says, I think the grav fields are reduced. That's why we feel most elevated in the mountains. And Shandor is mentioning about different plants, for example, that grow in different elevations and different fields for different plants and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you also remember when Mr. Keshe advised to bring the magraves and the star formations to a higher level, to go into the mountains, to reach those points. Even the monasteries. The reason why people are feeling better in a higher level is because they are further away from the electric, you know, what you have in your house. You have all this electric wire, you have all the network, which we are using on our mobiles, computers. Those are fields which are very, very heavy for human beings. So it is a disturbance. It brings your energy down. So when they go to a higher level and they go out of reach of these towers and the houses, they feel different, because that stressing of that field is reducing so much that they feel like liberated.
True, but many of the cultures built their cities and so on before there were cell phone towers, though. So this is and people have been going to the mountains for a long time, I think, for meditation, and the monasteries tended to be up in the mountains and various temples and that kind of thing.
Also, what you keep on complaining about, or bringing it up, not complaining, but at least you bring it on the topic.
Oh, I complain about air quality.
I mean, I don't know what word to use. You're agitated by it, with all the exhaust of all the cars on top of it when you go to that higher level.
Well, that's true. And that's why the rich people usually built their places up on the higher parts of the valley rather than down in the lower part of the valley. And they always build their places on the good side of the tracks, not the bad side of the tracks where the air pollution is.
Think about the far side. What is the side from the top compared to the side from a valley or from a hole somewhere?
I think they obtain a lot of knowledge, or they have the means to do it. But I think I always wonder, and I always say the same thing to Mr. Keshe. Sometimes, you know, he gets annoyed by it, but I say, why do people come into live in the city? You can give me anything you want. I will not live in the city. I can't stand the pressure. I can't stand the exhaust. I can't stand the smell. I can't stand the stress. Me going into shopping mall or into city for shopping, don't put me there for more than an hour, because I just get agitated. I need to get out of there. I live on the skirts of a city, And I only go into the city for the most necessary, but you will never find me hanging around and being comfortable in a city area. So then Mr. Keshe says, yeah, but people sometimes are forced to. And I thought, we have so much land if you calculate the surface of the earth and the space we are only using to put our homes down and I think it's a shame that they put them all together. There is no need for it.
Well, people do like to be sociable, but a lot of it is the work pressure as well. The jobs are in the cities and people tend to migrate there and have their friends that they like to associate with, and especially their job that they have the habit of having to engage in. But perhaps that whole structure will tend to change in the near future. There's a strong push to change the way the cities are laid out, and the whole transportation issue appears to be changing quite rapidly with the automated driving. And
I think you're going to be in for a bigger surprise, Rick.
Well, yes, hopefully.
Mr. Keshe always said to me, and that was years ago, he said, tell everyone you know to stay here. He says there's going to be a shortage of people on Earth to run Earth. He says you cannot imagine, he says, what I'm meaning. But the more and more we are going towards the achieving of the lift and the spaceship, I think people will go for that adventure. I can put the request out, please, knowledge seekers, do not leave planet Earth. Stay here and take care of it. Don't leave, not all of you, because we're going to be short.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Carolyn? Is this why Mr. Keshe, and I was going to bring this up earlier, but I didn't. Is this why Mr. Keshe says, if you want, I can show you how you want 1,000 years before you separate from your physicality, 500 years before I can show you how you want 1,000 years, but eventually you'll have to separate. Is this one of the reasons why he said that we can do this? Stay on the planet?
You will be able to do that, but if I may refer, go and watch all the presentations he has done about the earthquakes and the changing of the planet. So it's going to go over a few hundred years, but he also mentioned about something else, and he's repeated it quite a few times, that we are not infinite. And it comes up in different parts of his teachings, that there are universes which are just going into whatever you can name it. But this is also about to happen with our universe. So everybody says, okay, they have been talking about these heavy earthquakes and this and that, and it's overdue. But Mr. Keshe was very specific in the sequence of the events. And the events are there right in front of us. They have started in small measures since last year and the year before. And actually, they started with Fukushima, which is, I think, 7 years ago, when I urged him to inform wherever he could. I said, you have to bring this in public. He says, why? He says, people will not listen, they will not pay attention. I said, that's okay if they don't, but you have done the warning. You have explained what is about to come. I said, and maybe that will be a referring point in the near future when you explain again how nature will behave, because we are on a living entity. she moves, she rumbles, she's on the move, which is natural. I said, then maybe they will pay more attention if they remember what happened with Fukushima. So in those teachings, if you go back, Mr. Keshe always says, I explain everything from the day one, but are you ready to listen to it? I have brought these teachings quite a few times in my teaching, or I try to emphasize to people, go back and listen to them to see the sequence of the events, not to panic, but to see the reality of what is coming and not to be taken by surprise if it occurs. And by that time, also to be ready with your star formation and your spaceship and move away when the time is right. Earth and our solar system are not going to exist forever. And he also brought this into that part of those teachings. If you listen back to it, I remember clearly because I asked him the question. He speaks about that you can start seeing our twin solar system. It means we are coming close to collision. It will also depend on how humanity as a totality will change into a peaceful nation, that you might change the whole environment because we know that we are connected with everything. So I think the rapid of the movement comes because of the aggression which is on this planet present. So we're all working very hard and very intensive to go to that level of peace. And I think that by achieving the peace as a peaceful race, but also towards our environment and our animals and the other souls, I think we can manage to get a little bit more extension on that period of time. And Mr. Keshe is explaining it. Go back to those teachings. And if you want, Rick, and if everybody would like to know more about, maybe somebody can do some research on those teachings and maybe we can listen to it next week if it's of any interest of you. Are we finished with the Constitution, Rick, today?
I feel good that we've covered it as well as we need to. Is there anybody that feels that we need to carry on with that? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Going once, going twice. And it seems like it's good.
So the Constitution is finished?
I think we're done.
Okay, so maybe we can dig up those teachings. Flint knows, you know, we can find them. There are enough knowledge seekers which can gather them together. And then we can listen to what the future holds as a refreshment with, and that's the most important thing, to understand through the soul teachings how to behave when that period starts occurring for us. How to be wise and not panicking, and to send the same waves out as Mr. Keshe complimented all of you when the call came out from and through the core team to elevate the souls of the ladies of the heads of states, and that the changes are visible. So we know we are going into a transition, but as knowledge seekers, all of you are aware how fast and how strong, if we work through soul level, and maybe if we refresh through those kind of teachings, then we know on what to focus and how to be ready for it. Not maybe so much for ourselves, but for the ones which will be involved in those transitions, that we are ready to know how to work with our soul to guide them and elevate them to the destiny that they are facing. What do you think, Rick? Would that be a nice start for next week?
Are you talking about transitions? I brought up the idea of transitions and transit as part of existence today, and I don't know if people really caught on to that or not. But yes, that would be an excellent way to.
Then we can connect the soul teaching on the same platform of the understanding. When the planet goes through this kind of changes, how we all, as knowledge seekers, can do, let's say, like an understanding, and people can ask questions and see how many more doors can open up in how we can guide other souls to go through that transition. So,
right on. Mm-hmm.
Does anybody wants to go for that topic next week?
That would be a great topic. You're encouraging the knowledge seekers to stay on the planet?
You know something? The ones we
There's lots of people just won't want to leave. I mean, think about it. Would you want to leave your family, your friends, all your possessions, your home, your everything just now, right? And go to space? Are you ready for that right now? Anybody? Not hearing a lot of voices.
Not so quick. Not so quick.
Yeah, yes. There are a few things to take care of first. Like maybe the rest of my life, I'd like to live.
That if you took a ride, even a short ride in space, it would be so beautiful you wouldn't want to come back for a while.
Yes, but try to get your mother and father and grandmother to go and take that ride. And oh no, thanks. I'm hard enough of time with the bus. Thank you. I don't want to go to space. There'll be lots of people that will want to stay here and will need to stay here. And it'll all find a balance because only certain people, I was a kid when I grew up. I was 4 years old. As soon as I could start to look at pictures and read in books and so on, it was all about space for me. I literally said in a little TV show, they were interviewing kids in the audience, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a spaceman. And that was my goal. And it's never really changed in many ways. It's changed in its nature of what it means to me to be a spaceman. But it's always been my, in my intention for my whole life. So, but not everybody's like that. And a lot of people you talk to, what's your goal in life? It's not to be a spaceman. It's not to go to space. It's to, nurture the earth, or to be a farmer, or to be a fisherman, or to be a, whatever, somebody that's interacting with others on this planet right here, right now. And there's lots of important work in this realm of this sphere we call Earth to do. And it's like you say, it's a nurturing ground for the souls, but some move on and some stay here because, one of the main jobs is to take care of other beings, to elevate others. And so some people have to make that sacrifice of, even though they've seen space and how beautiful it is, they consciously decide to come back to this planet to help the beings on this planet evolve. And that's people like Mr. Keshe. I mean, you think he would not prefer to be in the beauty of space compared to the wackiness of humans and how they're killing each other continually and all the things that are going on that he has to deal with as with our so-called humanity?
There is a very positive thing which maybe a lot of you people have missed, and that is that once you establish your spaceships, do you remember what and how you will change when that achievement is there? You will be healthy, you will be balanced, you will have no need for that craving of food and damaging, because that is what the spaceships are going to bring to you. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to leave. You will create that condition here as well as when you would leave. It's not only that the people that are leaving and are able to make a spaceship that going to have those benefits, but also the people which are staying here will have those benefits, the changes.
That's true, but then it gets back into our conversation of earlier today of why people want to go to the top of the mountain. What's special about being closer to what we call space, or the, the outer parts of the atmosphere? What's special about that? What are the special fields are different?
Because Mr. Keshe told you so many times, he says, if you only would know how beautiful it is, you go straight away, but you're not allowed to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think you will enjoy it the minute you walk into the spaceship. I think then you will realize if that is so good and so beautiful and makes you so great, and it extends your life. So I think we are on a great adventure, but we also have to keep in mind that we have to look after what's going to go and happen here.
Caroline?
Yes?
Go ahead.
We are family, yes?
What?
We are family, yes?
Of course, we are all family.
If you go, we go. You stay, we stay.
Do you go everywhere in town with your whole family?
Yes, yeah. It's very beautiful.
It must be very crowded too.
You need to test it.
Rick.
Hello,
Carolina. Peggy. Hi, yes, it's Peggy. I just would like to add that I would just like to get into my sports spaceship and just tootle around Earth and assist her in her needs and the people as they're coming and as they're learning, because we will always have ones that are new that need to learn to interact with us here and with us with them there. And so I've never wanted to leave. I think space is beautiful. I want everybody to come and visit, but I have always had this attachment to, my desire was not to be the spaceman like you, but mine was to be the tree doctor and the one to help the animals and the one to help the people to understand them. And so I would just like to get in my spaceship and know my plasma oasis can come with me wherever I go and assist people and plants and animals and the beings that will come to visit us. Peggy, and the souls that are here. Yes, Jalal.
I will give you the key of my house.
I'll water your plants. I'll take care of your plants.
Keys to the spaceship.
Thank you, Jalal.
Don't forget, Peggy, we're gonna have a easier job with the knowledge which we are all discovering together. But there's gonna be a lot of cleaning up after our mess before we can actually be in peace with our own planet. So there will be enough work to do for the
Absolutely.
And people will do it willingly and joyously because it's something they want to do and something that needs to be done, and they'll see it that way rather than a job where you have to do something in order to get money back, in order to get on with your life and so on. I think it's going to be a different way of doing things in the very near future here, and it's already begun. So we work from the passion of our heart, and many people will have that passion to care for people and the other beings on this planet, and that's great. And if they need to if they have the desire or need to get off the planet, then that's great too. And maybe there'll be a mixture of both. I'm sure there'll be a full spectrum available for the needs of anybody who wants to stay, wants to leave, and all of that is available, the way I see it. So I think it'll all balance out very well.
Yes,
So
and Mr. Keshe just added to our numbers recently when he told us that we have gone from 7 billion to 700 billion. That just made me very ecstatic, because that means that there's more souls here to gather in, and to, you know, many hands make light work. And even if they don't have hands, they can bring their energies to assist in our elevation and the recreation of Mother back to where she is happy, and all of the beings upon her are happy.
okay, so we are all agree for next week what the topic will be. So if Flint and Rick can work out to locate the videos from that period of time, and it would be really nice to listen to the part when Mr. Keshe was announcing about Fukushima. I think we were still in Belgium when that was done. I remember we were still in Belgium. So it's a long way back, Rick. If that is agreed and we are within our time to close, I am sorry, I need to apologize, but I need to go.
Yep, that's good. We're over a bit here, so it's definitely time to end. And thank you for your guidance once again, Caroline.
Only one thing, Rick, please. This is for Caroline. Sorry, Caroline, I cannot come with you. I promise Gatwa. I have his suitcase with me.
Okay, we see each other next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rick.
And finishing the Constitution, and we'll carry on next week. And everybody, see you next time. Thank you, team, for carrying on. I'm sorry I was so much absent, but I had no choice.
You'll have to listen to the recording to get all our good comments.
I have to what?
You'll have to listen to the recording and get all our good comments. See you. Bye, Caroline.
I didn't hear the last word
you said. I was just saying you'll have to listen to the recording.
I will. I will start from when I arrive home.
I was just kidding, but I know you probably will. Yeah. Okay.
I always, because it inspires the topics and how people respond, and it's very important to go back to your own teachings. I even go back to my personal teachings, so which will start tomorrow. I will try to join you, Rick, if I can, because I know you're up in. I'm advertising for you, Rick.
Okay, that'll be the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group at 7 a.m. Central European Time.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
I thought I lost you because you stayed so quiet.
No.
You're up tomorrow morning early, yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's actually tonight my time, but 12 hours from now, roughly, a little less.
Good. We'll try to join you. And I encourage the knowledge seekers, if they have any difficult questions with their systems, go to Rick. That's a great team.
And bring your devices and inventions and concepts that we can work with in the plasma group as well. That's what we do there, and the best. And we like to talk about the new things that people are coming up with. So
you know, Rick, what I would like to suggest to you, to make maybe some time in your presentation to organize like a think tank that people can really come with what they haven't been able to make, but their vision on what it should be or how it could be done or what could be used for. So that we are opening doors for inspiration for people who can do. And then when they come into your teaching and they listen, they might have the solution for somebody else's idea. What do you think? Would that be good?
Well, that's usually what people are coming up with these days. There's less devices and more advices, I guess you might say. So, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm not quite sure how that would be implemented differently than
like a think tank for an hour. People just bring.
Well, that's what we do generally in the plasma group, is we sit and we discuss things for up to 3 or 4 or 5 hours. And sometimes people present their actual devices, but for me, I don't have any devices I'm working on, so I don't present anything unless it's something I've already done from before, and I just haven't had time and energy to put into it in the last while. So, but others sometimes are showing things, but often it's a discussion, essentially a think tank where we all contribute, try to bring out different aspects of a certain concept, of trying to figure out how.
I'll see you next week, team. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't think you can hear me. Okay, bye, Caroline.
Trains his gut because he can't have his class full in the agriculture.
What's that?
For me,
I
it's
think
goodbye.
Yatwa complains because you take all his students, none appear in his class because they're all busy with the reactor group.
Well, that's not true at all, John, but it might be a good joke.
That's when your class is over 3 hours. I mean, I'm just pulling your leg, don't worry.
See you all next week with a new topic. Goodbye.
Thank you, Carolina. Bye-bye.
Team, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks.
One more thing, Rick, before we close. It just came to my mind. Please have 1 minute of silence for us to elevate the souls of the ladies which are standing next to strong men. We will need their support to balance it out. I am present.
Thank you, Caroline. I am present.
I am present.
I am present.
I am present.
Always present.
I am present.
I am present.
And lots of indications in the chat. There might be others that want to say, but we probably should have that minute of silence, and then maybe you can end it for us, Flint.
Okay.
So this has been the 58th One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace for Tuesday, November 20th, 2018. We'll have 1 minute of silence here for what Caroline just laid out with the women behind the men of power, and elevate the souls for world peace. And we can start that now. Okay, and thank you everybody for attending.
Hello. We are the Keshe Foundation. Our mission is to bring peace on Earth and join humanity with the universal community. We wish and work to bring man as equal to all beings in the universe. By teaching plasma science and technology equally to everyone, no one is left out and no one is abused due to lack of knowledge. By donating to us, you can help achieve this goal. keshefoundation.org/donate.
Plasma products found at keshefoundation.org/store. Soothing, reusable plasma eye and migraine mask. Eliminate eye fatigue and relieve stress in eye area. European certified medical device. Massaging plasma insoles. Bring comfort back to your feet and energize your legs. European CE certified medical device. Antiseptic plasma liquid hand soap. Promotes well-being and relaxation with protective plasma formula. CE certified. One Soul Plasma T-shirt. GAN's formula within the symbols and stripes brings mind, soul, and body into balance. European certified. Pain Relief Pen. Emits a concentrated plasma field at point of pain, efficient up to 3 centimeters below the skin. CE certified. The Magrav's Energizer and Alkalizer raises pH and energizes water through magnetic and gravitational fields. CE certified medical device. Pain Relief Pad, a result of years of research in nanoplasma technology with magnetic and gravitational fields. CE certified medical device. Visit the online store at keshefoundation.org/store or find a distributor near you. Tax and shipping not included.